E flat sus, sus 9, regular 9, then a D dominant, which is a tritone, so with sharp 13, sharp 11. Today we're going to be breaking down the chord progression from a song Could Have Been by H.E.R. It's got a lot of really lush, beautiful harmonies in it. A lot of them have a lot to do with jazz harmony, extended harmony with extensions and all that kind of beautiful stuff that makes chords lush and full and sexy. The beauty of watching a video is you can stop it. So I would encourage you at any point, if you're a little confused or you want to go over something, please stop the video, look at the keyboard we have displayed, and look at the staff, the chord symbols. Really take your time to understand each chord and how it moves, and get it under your hands too before you move on. So let's just start from the beginning, and I'll break down each chord and talk about them, and talk about the chord tones that are in it and the extended notes, the extensions that are on each chord, which are like the colorful notes that make them sound more interesting and more lush. So the first chord we have is an E flat sus, but it's got a 9 on the top, which is the F. So this is the full chord. So each note we have the E flat, the root, then I'm playing the 5th here in the bass, but you don't necessarily need that, but I am playing it. So we have a perfect 5th in the left hand. Then you have the sus 4, which is an A flat right here. Then the flat 7, D flat. So now we have a basic E flat 7 sus. We have the sus 4 and the flat 7. But now to make it a sus 9 chord, to add the 9 to it, we're going to put the F on the top. And then I'm doubling the A flat on the top with my pinky. And one way to think about chords a lot of times is that the upper structure of the chord, you could call it, is really its own kind of chord, like a triad or a 7th chord, then with a different root note to change the quality of the chord. So if you take the left hand out, that's just a D flat triad. So 1, 3, and 5, D flat major. But then when you put an E flat in the left hand, now it makes it an E flat sus 9 chord. So that's the first chord. The second chord in the progression, the left hand moves down to D. And actually I'm going to take this 5th out for now. And the upper structure of the chord goes to this. That feels nice, doesn't it? The reason why it feels nice is because the voice leading is so good. All these notes are moving a very small distance, right? It sounds very pleasant for that to happen. Smooth voice leading where the notes aren't moving far distances usually sounds best to our ears and sounds the most musical. The other thing you'll notice though that's really cool is the top note stays the same, but the chord underneath it kind of sort of recontextualizes that note. And it's so smooth. But what is that second chord? That second chord is technically the root of it, the bottom of it is a D7, just a regular D dominant chord. So this is the root D, F sharp, which is the 3rd, and C, which is the flat 7. But then you have the 9 above that. So now we have a D9 chord, which is simply a dominant chord with a 9 added. Then that top note we have, which is our A flat, is the sharp 11. So in the chord before that, it was our sus 4, right? E flat, it's the sus 4. When we move to D, now it's a sharp 11 in this chord, which is why it sounds so colorful, and it's kind of a tense note. That would be with the natural, and now if we flat the 5 or sharp the 4, in this case we're calling it an 11, we have a sharp 11 sound. So that is, again, a D9, sharp 11. With the 9 and sharp 11. Then our next chord, now we're to 1. I would really consider D flat to be the key of this song, D flat minor, or C sharp minor, however you want to think about it. That sort of feels like our home chord for this progression. And it is a D flat minor 9. You could also throw an 11 in there, if you wanted to, which is the 4. So the 4 would mean it's a sus. So you can have dominant chords with susses in them, like the E flat sus we had. The 3rd goes up to the 4, which is what makes it a sus chord. But you can also have minor sus too. So again, those first 3 chords, you have the sus, our E flat sus chord with the 9. Then you have D, D9 sharp 11, and then you have D flat minor 9. But then when the progression goes back around, we have this really cool passing chord that comes in right at the last second. Let me just play you the whole progression in rhythm now so you can hear it. So 2, 3, 4. So it gets us back to the first chord, which is our E flat sus chord. But what is that cool passing chord? So let's start on the minor chord, the minor 9. It's a D flat minor 9. And the chord we go to is a G flat dominant chord. And again, the cool thing about this progression, this A flat stays the same on the top. It's a common tone throughout all these chords. And that's what's cool about this progression in particular, is that top note stays the same and it's recontextualizing that note as the lower parts of the chords move in different ways. It sounds really great. So this chord right here, it's actually another dominant chord. So we have F sharp as our root, and then flat 7 and the 3. So then we have an F sharp 7 chord in the bottom part of the chord. But then we add the 13 to that. Then we add a sharp 11 below that. And then the 9 on top, of course, our A flat that stays the same. So again, you have root, flat 7, 3rd, sharp 11, C, 13, and 9 on the top. So F sharp 13, sharp 11. And 13 chords, most of the time, you consider that the 9 or the second scale degree, the natural 2 of that chord, is always going to be in there if it's a 13 chord. So if I saw F sharp 13, I would automatically add the 9, most likely. And in this case, it's on the top. So really, there's 2 main progressions in this song. There's the first one that I just taught you with these chords, and that repeats another time. But then eventually we get to this second set of chords that it eventually leads us back to that same first chord. But we get there in a different way. So in this case, we're starting here, and we're getting back to the E flat sus from this F sharp chord, our little passing chord. But at the end of this progression, we start here. Then when we go to that passing chord, we instead go to A major. That's so cool, right? Listen to how that transitions. And it looks like I'm jumping a lot, but if I were to not jump to that higher voicing and play all the notes right here in this range, you'll see the voice leading is still very smooth. See how the notes aren't moving very far to that? It sounds so drastically different. It's like it's taking us to another place, like whole another planet with how that's shifting. But because the voice leading is so smooth, it sounds very cool to us. Very, very slick sounding. So what we're going to, the technical chord, is an A major 9. And that's the voicing I'm playing. So you have the root A, G sharp, the major 7, the 3rd C sharp, then I'm adding the 5th in there. You don't have to have the 5th a lot of times in a lot of chords, but I'm adding it because it just makes it a little bit more full. And then doubling the major 7 again, and then the 9 on top. But you could put the 9 an octave lower. So from the previous chord, Now from there, something really cool that happens is the upper structure of the chord actually doesn't change. Really, the bass just changes. So when we get into progression in time, we have, when we get to this chord, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see that we get a whole 2 measures of A major, but then the bass changes to F sharp, but the upper part of the chord doesn't change. So when we have our A major 9, now we're really going down to an F sharp minor, an F sharp minor 9. And you can add the 11 in right here with your thumb if you want to. But then in the song, the next chords, the voicing changes. It actually goes up to, and if you don't have the reach for that chord, again, you can do, you could put the third next to it up here. I like this chord, just like that. Or honestly, if you use the pedal, you can sustain the previous chord and just kind of arpeggiate up to the 11 on the top. So this minor chord is very similar to the C sharp minor 9 that we had in the first part of the progression, this one. So we have root, I'm adding the 5th, the 3rd, the minor 3rd, and then the 5th again if you want to. Then the flat 7, which is E, and then the 9, G sharp, and then you can put the 11 on top or underneath. And just so you know, make sure you understand, the 4, like the sus4 when you have a sus chord, and the 11 are the same. This kind of goes more into extended jazz harmony. I won't go into it a lot now, but it's something that's very important to understand how chords work. So we have this chord, we have this minor 11 chord or this minor 9 chord, depending on how you voice it. But then we go up to the 11, so we change it to an F sharp minor 9. And then something really cool happens. That whole chord essentially just moves down a whole step. So we have F sharp minor 9, then we go down to E minor. So the basic thing that's happening is if I play these chords in root position, there's an F sharp minor 7 chord, it moves down a whole step to E minor 7. But the voicings sound like this. So that's how we end up back to the first chord of the first progression. So we have F sharp minor 9, E minor 9, and then back to our E flat sus. And this progression makes a lot of sense. And if you just look at the bass line from that progression, we start on that A chord, then we go down to F sharp, and then E, and then down to E flat. So you can see there's a motion, there's a trajectory. This bass line is going down. And then with the whole chords. And all of the voice leading in general is moving down, right? So that's it, the chords from Could Have Been by H.E.R. If you have any questions about what I taught in this video, you can put those below. If you'd like to see more lessons like this one, you can look for links in the description. Always remember to like, subscribe, comment, and as always, thanks for watching.